Welcome to the Black and Unblending podcast, where we discuss the internal family systems model through the Black experience. Introducing Kayla Bell Consalver, licensed mental health counselor, Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor, Linda Mayepa, traditional doctor of African medicine, and Shanika Williams, licensed clinical social worker. This podcast is for learning purposes only. This is not medical or mental health advice. All right. Well, welcome back to Black and Unblending. It's a podcast where we talk about the Black experience and the IFS model through that lens. And we have a really important topic today, which is anger. Yes. Just notice your parts as a name, right? That we're talking about anger today, especially as there's parts of me that, as I've been sitting and really embracing my anger in a, really like a sacred way. It's like really settling in of like, who else probably on the planet, not to say that other cultures and don't, but for our people, what they've been through, that anger to be something that's used against us um, is, and it feels like a very valid emotion from the experience. So I'm just grateful to sit with these beautiful minds here as we take in. So first we have our parts party before we get in. So party. So we speak for a part that we've been kind of sitting with. It's been giving us some information, or even some that we're noticing in this moment. Let's sit down with our parts party, checking in to see who we want to speak for.
I got a part I can speak for. I feel it like a cartoon bulge in my forehead of anger. And it really wants me to move and do things and fix stuff and build better. And it just wants to burn with fire, the bad things. And wow, just talking about it, it's like the bulge is kind of calmed down and it's, invited another part to come forward. It's like, okay, here's how we're going to do this. And it's a new partnership of the past few years, maybe decade or so. And it's just so nice to like have constructive things to do with that anger. Because it means the anger isn't ignored or doesn't go to waste that energy. It becomes something.
No, I love that. I'll speak for my parts, which is not too uncommon around topics of anger. Is there's a laughter, comical part that tends to come up, which I think we saw before we pressed record. Just like this sense of, are we gonna laugh through it, right? Was it like Kevin Hart laugh at my pain kind of energy? It helps me process like, what? That joke is crazy, right? Because if not, anger comes in. Like that joke is crazy, right? So I feel that in my body, just like this disbelief of things that tend to have a potential to like push on the parts of me that hold anger. So, which I'm grateful for it, but it's definitely there.
I'm like, anger is like, ooh, we get to talk. So it's like this calmness that I'm noticing, because how anger normally shows up is in my chest because it's very protective of my heart. And it's like it's not used to being invited, right? So that feels good. And it's like, okay, we get to talk.
There is a lot here. Anger is so ready for this, or the parts of me that hold anger is already. But there's definitely, I feel like a part of me that's like a champion, that's always been like a champion for anger. That's like really excited about this discussion, and to really excited about this relationships that I've been building with There's my own parts that are carrying this. I think it didn't feel like this champion was like you didn't feel like you could like love and you didn't think you could love someone and hold anger, right? Like it's like you had to choose. Like yeah, it was a
Mm.
choice. And so like she's like so excited, like, oh, you finally get it. Like you get like you can love people and yeah, and be upset. Like and be upset with them. Like both can be here. So yeah, excited about this conversation and journey that we are on today. As we're sitting with this, there's a lot of questions. I know that we probably won't be able to do all of them, but question I wanted to first pose to you all is like, how does IFS or you feel IFS helps us to understand anger as not a problem? 'Cause anger is something that's stigmatized, just in general, but specifically against Black people.
I say one of the thing I appreciate the most is it holds the therapist accountable and gives appreciation to like the part. So if let's say a client is demonstrating like there's a part of them like really angry and it activates the clinician,
Mm.
the parts aren't the ones that are the problem. It's an invitation to check in. Where like especially for black people, there might be a situation where like, oh, they're villainized, right? Or now automatically ODD, and there's not an expectation to do a U-turn. And it's like they acted out. But I like the way it's spoken. I don't know if it's always practiced that way, but the way it's spoken is that you have to do a U-turn and recognize what's coming up for you when they express that. And then with clients, it has a purpose. Like anger isn't just this like out of control thing that's just like there because people can't control themselves. Like it actually has a story that's worth listening to.
Anger is usually like enough. Like,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. And I think you named something big, and my parts get they hold a lot of anger around the ODD diagnosis. Like
Mhm.
like, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, now it's ODD. And it's like really usually where there's opposition is because like something isn't fair, something's not right. There's pain underneath there. So like
Mhm.
diagnosing like a response to harm, it feels my parts get yeah, really passionate.
Mhm.
What I appreciate about IFS and anger is that I noticed that the more I was able to get in relationship with my anger, it allowed me to be in relationships with others who hold anger. Um, because a lot of times it is a vulnerability behind it and how it can show up, just in sessions is just noticing like anger is often misunderstood, right? And if we just show it a bit of respect because, I hear the word compassion and sometimes my anger parts don't need that. Like, I don't feel sorry for me, hear me, right? Respect me and allow me to take up space when I do show up because I'm here for a reason, right? Um, so I have like, because I have like this relationship with my anger, it gets excited when anger shows up in the space where it's like, hey, here, you're allowed to be angry. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to tolerate what all that comes with it. Like, there are ways that I still show up for myself to make sure that my system is okay. But it's just a different way of being able to have a way to create space for anger, especially growing up where you weren't allowed to be angry. And when you did see anger, it could be very scary in how it was handled, or I wouldn't say like handled, but how it was displayed by different, you know, people. So being able to not be afraid of it um, when it shows up in sessions and respect it, I noticed that anger naturally will soften because it's being heard. So that's what I appreciate.
Yeah, for me, absolutely hearing anger has been so important. Um, the purposefulness of anger. And what I see often is how ancestral anger is. as a tool of control. You're not supposed to be angry. As a tool of demanding compliance and docility. And so when anger shows up, the way it moves through me and the way it moves through my client tells its own story um, about what's happening for that person, what's happening or has happened for me. And then there's those tools to get into relationship with that IFS offers, the invitation to hear from those parts. And I think those are doors that were very quick to show to shut rather in different cultures. And, that who's that benefit, right? Who's that benefit?
I wonder too, when you that naming that ancestral energy, one of trying to control anger, but also too like that when anger is like fully embodied and how it moves through. And just making more space to say more about that. And that feels like a really, rich place.
Mhm.
Influent. I think one of the best things I ever did for my anger was like, because I remember when I was listening to it, it said it just wants to like throw things, express, it just wants to like let it all out. And externally that didn't feel safe. Right. Like, and like for me to go, you can do rage room type things like that. But in that moment, that was like, didn't feel accessible. And so what ended up happening is I was able to create that internally, which actually gave such a release. It was like, oh, okay, do it. And let the part, literally, I remember just watching it, throwing chairs, like, it was just all somatic, screaming. Yeah, it was so much pain there. But I felt my body like release. Right. And I knew what was being carried was just so much rage that just didn't start with me. And that's where that sacred. So now it's like I go to intentional places to access it and allow it to be heard and released and channeled in the ways that it needs to be. And so I'm grateful for that like tool. Because I know if at least there's probably these ancestral protectors that know if this gets outside my body in a certain time in this particular way, that's way more dangerous. But we need to have room for this to be and move.
It's really interesting, Kayla, hearing you share about just noticing how at times it's not always safe for anger to express itself because of it almost mm, gave perpetrators an excuse for, how they then reacted to it. So constantly having to navigate that where it's like, how do we allow it to take up space and at the same time, not give power to others who try to evoke that out of you, right? Yeah, there's a lot of, again, systems is coming up because, having a partner right now that's affiliated with, the military and having parts that are holding a lot of anger because of what's happening, but not being able to display that because of the repercussions that can come with that warrants like that's why we need a place for anger to be able to take up space. And it's really tough. It's like it's really tough to like there's like a sadness that's coming up like around that. Like the needing to be angry to release and at the same time having to hold so much. Um the needing to contain it based on, just what systems that, we have to interact with. So how do we create space, whether that's inside or in a relationship with someone who is able to be with anger?
Mm.
And that was something that was really important for me to know how to do. Like, how can I be with my partner's anger?
Mm.
Right? Because it wasn't like directed at me, but yet this person feels safe with me, right? And in feeling safe with me, now the anger feels safe with me because again, I learned how to be in relationship with my anger, which allows me to be in relationship with their anger. And it's like, it's a lot around that, where just Black men and their anger is often misunderstood or judged. It's seen as out of control, it's seen as dangerous, it seems like,
Mhm.
all these things that is tied to that. And me needing to stay curious as well, because there's a lot of programming,
Mhm.
just, growing up in America, being able to being able to hear more about where the anger is coming from versus it's being seen as dangerous, like something's going to happen to me if anger is present
Mhm.
because of how it's displayed in movies or displayed in what, we've seen, or even displayed in just, family dynamics. So there's just a lot around that.
Remember the moment you said it, an image of slavery popped in my head. Like you're just like,
Yeah.
could they have been angry? Like actually, you
Hmm.
could barely breathe out of turn. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, that
Hmm.
instantly took back. Like you gotta take it. So it's like you're not even just grieving the anger, you're grieving the loss of self.
Hmm.
Like you're grieving
Hmm.
the loss of your humanity.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And that junk
Mhm.
goes all the way back.
Hmm.
So that's what I was holding as you were saying that. I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
that's the ancestral piece right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Because what isn't handled sticks around and causes problems,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Hmm.
And it limits the possibilities that are possible to be imagined.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, it's like, oh, what if I dealt with this anger? Well, there's so much. So the thought is, I can't.
Yeah.
But what if you shared it, as Shanika was talking about, with
Yeah.
someone who's able to be in relationship with it?
Hmm.
What possibilities happen then?
Mhm.
What is possible from allowing anger to express itself and then calm? What's next,
Hmm.
right? And something that Shanika shared is, well, one of the things that's next is it can be shared. You can turn to the next person,
Mhm.
the trusted person next to you.
Hmm.
And that's extremely powerful. That is what our ancestors have for us, is our connection to them and to one another,
Hmm.
right? And in some ways, that's the control piece of anger. It's like, oh, make people angry, but they can't express their anger. And then they can't connect to one.
Hmm.
It's like, no, I choose something different.
I love that.
Hmm.
Being in relation and holding it in a collective space, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Hmm.
mm-hmm,
Uh, I had um held like it just kind of came up during a training, or I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this like meditation. I said like a group of Black women that I was working with, and we did a meditation around anger, and it was just so the imagery that came up, right? When you were saying like there's so much, right? Like there's so much the not being seen as human, but then like not even being able to express, like not having any, right? Just and that being just passed down, right? And we do, like I think Kayla, we name it, and I think it's probably the thing that keeps us sane, that laughter that keeps us sane. And it's something I notice, like we joke like, oh, Black people laugh about everything, they think everything is funny, and it's like, that's just like how we manage this, like living in this world where like we get so many messages
Hmm.
um and about just how we are not welcome here, even though we didn't ask to be here.
Hmm.
Finding that collective space is, I think it's life changing. Um, and it takes work building that relationship with because even in there, that's legacy burdens in that there's fear, right? Like I don't want to be seen as an angry Black woman. I don't want to be seen as a bitter Black woman. There's even legacy even connected to that.
And then what's after that is like, I don't want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Mm, mm.
mm,
That's why after pandemic, a lot of women across the world, like, I don't want to go back to work.
mhm.
They're right here, remote, if I can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be seen. Yeah,
If I can't be seen as me.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Dangerous.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I can't claim that quote. That feels very like Audre Lorde and James Baldwin. It feels like there's even just in saying that, that felt like that wasn't from me. I'm like, where you get them words? Like
Yeah.
that feels like something historical.
Mm-hmm.
It, yeah. And I think it's something I'm so passionate about that sometimes I feel like I don't have the words right to eloquently say it, but even being with you all and how you're naming it, it's it feels like a huge direct tie to like ancestral wounding and pain. And the and it's like sacred. It really is. And it's like sometimes, which I feel like I'm naming this like in my parts like we gonna hold you to this even before I say it out loud, but like making an altar for, right,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
for like that ancestral wounding because it is like, as you name Kay, like, oh yeah, I'm afraid to be seen is because it's like what happened when we were seen,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what if we could see it? What if we see the ancestral wounding in a place and like honor it? Um,
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
And honestly, I'm thinking about this, like what continues to happen. It's like that repetitive person came to mind. It's like, oh, when we are the most visible, like think about how they treated Michelle Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Just for her being herself. I think she talks a little bit about that in her one of her books, like how she couldn't really emote because it'd be a thing. So it's like constant, like so still so prevalent, this ancestral wound that just keeps getting reignited.
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking about like access to power and like in that moment, right? She had a lot of access to power, but still because right, her
Mm.
identity didn't like felt like had to shrink. No.
Mm-hmm. And
Which, oh, go ahead, Shanika.
I was gonna say in the polarization with that, like the betraying of self, like like parts that show up around that by not speaking up
Mhm.
and having to hold that.
It's wild to me because I'm like, I feel like we we're not as vocal as we used to be, and folks still kind of scared. It's like I was like, has nobody popping off at work on people the way that that range is real contained, and like y'all still sounds like, oh, I'm confused. Help me understand. Like the visceral reaction when we really be, if anything, trying to contain ourselves way more.
Yeah.
But yet y'all still scared. I'm just like, but I guess that's y'all ancestral fears
Yeah.
and whatever. But I'm just like that. I'm thinking. I was like, I feel even for me. I was like, I feel like I'm way more calm than I have ever been emoting.
Mm-hmm.
Still same juvenile fear of like, oh, you're gonna be this. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like reality. I think about reality TV. Like we really don't be on TV cutting up the way we used to, like letting people hear it the way they need to hear it. It's like, so where are you still getting these messages? Why are you still holding on to your ancestral rage? I'm talking about folks, like white folks. Honestly, it's across the board. Anti-Blackness is across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so why are you, as a collective, still holding on your rage toward us? When we really like think about even the protests right now, like we're not even out there as much. Y'all still worried about us being aggressive and our rage being a weapon
Mm-hmm.
to hurt you, and we still gotta hold this expectation.
There's a part that has a spicy take. I'm trying.
I know the moment I said, I was like, "Are we gonna edit this out? Or gonna keep this?"
I know. Part
It
that
is
has
what
a
it is.
spicy
We'll
take
see.
about that, Kayla, because it was something that came up around someone sharing a story with me about like just like, oh no, you're gonna be upset. Like you're and I'm like, it feels like intuitively what it feels like it's like they know like we have every right to be angry and they know that they don't
Mm.
have the capacity to deal with it. Like they
Mhm.
Mm.
like like there's wisdom in every part, right? So even the part that's like scared, it's like that part has enough wisdom to know like we can't handle this anger and we know like
Mhm.
we know they have a course. So why wouldn't they be angry?
Mhm.
That makes a lot of sense.
I said it in a less spicy way, so yeah, we're good. I'm blending. All right.
Black it up, Linden.
I was gonna say I can get a lot spicier than that
Good.
because I
Keep it in the
think
show notes. I'm kidding.
yeah, it's like I think there's a huge component of what would I do in that situation, and it ain't pretty.
Mm.
They're not even in that situation, and it's not pretty.
Mhm.
So um, there's no there's no sense of proportion, no sense of trying to find the words here. There's no sense like why would I do all that with my anger? Like my anger turns to construction,
Mhm.
right? My anger turns to I want to build a school. I want to
Yeah.
build. Okay, my anger is not where I see some stuff going around. Okay,
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah.
So I think there's a big component of what are y'all holding onto in there? Can you
Mhm.
release it? And what we are hanging on to with our anger, I think, is an enormous capacity for connection and for
Yeah.
bright futures.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
you know, it's why I embrace anger. It's why I invite the conversations and the stories that anger brings because, it's not really just anger, it's hurt, betrayal, it's it's a whole lot of other stories of humanity
Yeah. Yeah.
that need told and need heard.
Now you hit it perfectly because the moment you were saying, I was like, what is it? I was like, oh, there's connection. And sometimes it's not even connection to the person. It's just such a huge loss of connection to more if
Mhm.
there's anger. So if I'm angry, maybe I don't like you, right? You said some really off the wall things. My anger towards you, if it gets displayed and I lose connection with you, fine. But how you use that, your perception and your parts around my anger and how that gets spread, then can lose my connection to different resources, to different connections with others,
Mhm.
because it like can activate their parts around what they already think about black anger.
Right.
And so it's just like sometimes that greater risk. I think that's why our family said like just don't act out, hold it in because you're gonna lose this opportunity. And that's still, I know for at least in my system, there's still parts that hold that. It's like, if I mess up, or will it lose connection to our like the lineage after us?
Mhm.
Like, well, we can't have another black person in power here. They a little wild, So
Mhm.
I feel like that sometimes comes up for me. Um, when that part wants to like rightfully so, express itself. It's like the cost.
Mhm.
Does it feel worth it to the entire internal and external system for us?
Mhm.
Mm.
And that's a lot to carry.
It's a lot.
Mhm.
It is. That makes sense, Kayla, too, because we are, even though sometimes I would say like maybe we aren't as collective in our operation, our day to day. Like we are definitely collective in our like in definitely in our ways of like survival. So it's like
Yeah.
Of survival.
yeah, Michelle Obama, she's like, I'm the first, right? I'm the first one, so I have to, right?
Yeah.
I have to for everybody, right?
Mm.
She took one for us. I feel like, like
Mhm.
I gotta represent us. And that's just
Yeah.
that's a lot. That's a lot for parts to take on. That's hmm. Shout out to Michelle Obama's parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Shout
Yeah.
out to her and her therapist. I
Yeah.
was like,
I'm trying to figure out how to put this in a way where it makes sense. Because when I think of anger, it's also this energy, like this action type energy, and how it can be used in a way to take action or strategize. And then it brings me back to, well, that's why they didn't allow us to feel it because, you know, just thinking, I guess slavery, right? Like the needing to be in control. Like if they allowed that emotion where anger can come with action, there's that risk of losing that control, right? Because when you were talking about, like for me, like if anger shows up and they have a reaction to it or they concerned about it, it's like I saw this presence of like all these black bodies behind me, and it's like because we show up deep, right?
Mm.
And it is a lot to contain because it's, I think Kayla, you're the one who said it's in our bones, right? Like this was passed down over and over and over again. And just thinking of that if that energy was to awaken at one time and we all came together, I'd be scared too. Right. So the needing to, right. So the needing to like,
Mm.
how do I maintain that control? Well, I make you responsible for how I react to it. So you being
mhm,
angry and me having a reaction to it, I have strategies that I can use for you to get that under control. Right?
Mm. Yeah.
see, this is
Hope
why they
that
need to
makes
start.
sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I say this is why they need to stop having conversations around white fragility and white guilt because it's
Hmm.
deeper than that,
Yeah.
right? That, like what you said, I know I did you wrong,
Yeah.
and I want to actively suppress that because I know I will have to suffer the consequences of what I did.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
it made a lot of sense.
And I think so we're yeah, talking about building a relationship with the parts of us that hold anger. They're like connected to this like tidal wave of ancestral pain.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, it feels too like there's that other tidal wave too. It's like those systems, right, that you named, Shanika, right? Like those systems that are built to like, right, caretake or to weaponize certain belief systems and right to like to, to use to help us, be obedient uh and and not question and not right, all of that. Just like, building a relationship with both. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
I think how I like that IFS when I'm starting to think more, and I think where it could probably grow because a lot of the growth I've seen in this work with it has been from like BIPOC clinicians that are doing the legacy and ancestral work. Um, because I think when that work isn't done, there's still a desire for these parts to take a step back, right? The belief these parts are causing overwhelm, that, self is the one who holds all the wisdom, right? And so I think that's where IFS has a blind spot. And I was watching a video with a pretty renowned trainer that was talking, the question was around legacy burdens, and they're like, oh, I don't really do as many legacy burdens. Tamala does that. And I thought it was interesting. Um, because I think even in this space, I think when we think about legacy and culture, it's still it's not embedded in all of IFS. It's a
Um,
lot of the work that we're bringing to the table because and they were a white clinician, but I was like that it shows that I think that's where IFS's limit or one of their limitations is it's not still embracing these parts in their ancestral roots. Because then what do you do when the clinicians who are holding the ones that like we just talked about, like Shanika, you named over here, and we're empowering, like that system is going to come up in the space, right? Um, so that's just something I've seen, like, oof, that work hasn't really been developed from the core.
Hmm.
Uh,
100% agree with you. Yeah.
Hmm.
mhm,
Yeah. I feel like from my lens and my seat, right, that sometimes things are done in a way that just because of the blind spots, because of um things being so like IFS really being birthed in like a really white space, that like things would just be named in a way that I'm like, well, that wasn't for me. Right. So I'm just like, that wasn't for me. I would I just remember my first
Filter.
yeah, my first conference 2 years ago, and woman, she's actually a BIPOC woman, but she's like, yeah, we're just gonna invite all our ancestors to be here. And I was like, oh no,
So you're trying to have a civil war.
I was like, no, we not. Not doing that.
Woo, all right now. Now talk about a party.
I'm like,
About to get hot up in here.
Right,
my
right.
ancestors will not be in this space with y'all ancestors. Like that's
If they do, it's gonna be a different
like
experience.
like, like so I think it's
Woo.
like things are they're said like in a way of like, oh, right, like, and it feels very like um self-aligned, right? We say self-aligned parts, right? Or where we're not fully taking in, like the wisdom, right? The wisdom that is like the parts that we have. Like anger is an advocate. Anger is the mobilizer, like you said, and like anger is I think it's the reason why I feel, and my parts we passionate, but I mean it's the history is a history. Why, most, I mean even the uprising that's happening now, like, and especially in power, is by Black people, right? Like it just feels like there's something that gets missed there, uh um tapping into something that's actually like real and authentic, and not like this kind of like, ah, like like kind of like this is, and we're here and our answer, and like, no, no, yeah, no. Anger, there's so much wisdom in that.
I even named too as I started, got a little 2-year-old, so them temper tantrums getting a little real. I even found that wisdom in her little angry parts. I don't like the way they express sometimes, like, but learning like some of the stuff I had to be mindful of, like how am I giving permission to her this young to have these parts versus contain and reject these parts. So it's been interesting to like have that in those moments and respond. Because I think it starts that early too, right?
Absolutely.
And even as they get older, like what are kids allowed to be angry about? There's some things that will feel like I want more, I want extra. Cool, I know you do. We can't have that today, right? But that piece around connection and like Dr. Jen Mullen, she does a lot of this work around like anger can be expressed. Sometimes the ways it shows up, though, we need some support with that. Right? We can connect to it. But we also have to be accountable for the ways that our parts do display themselves, And so I think about that like with young kids, like how often can we give permission for anger, but also coach on ways that we can express it in a way that, they can take accountability for, right? Yeah, so I've just been thinking a lot about that with kids. 'Cause I think we see that happening as you get older, right? Those messages. They used to do a lot of BS. They need to stop being angry. It's like, what does that mean? Or anger management, right? People have whole courses based on this stuff. So, no.
Like, yeah, what can like teaching like co-regulation, right? For your 2-year-old.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Mhm.
You so much for bringing kids into this. This is one of my favorites, most favorite things. I have a teenager. Ooh, this child totally gets the anger, the great anger from my father's side of the family. And I think I had already started doing IFS. And he got angry one day, and it was a big deal because we were trying to go into an event, a very important family event, and he didn't want to go. and it was like 100 something degrees. I was like, you can't stay in the car, friend. And I explained why, and he blew up. And the
Mm.
really cool thing was because of the relationship to anger that I had been developing. Oh, I really heard what he was saying. And this dude was spitting facts. I was like, you know what? You are right. And then a whole new world opened up
Mm.
of here's what we can do, here's what we cannot do, here's what gets people in trouble, this is what gets you in trouble. you know, here's like we just had a huge conversation. It really, man, that's a good memory. I mean, he was pissed. Such a good memory.
Yeah.
But it really, there are lessons in anger.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Um, and there's lessons. This is that connection. It's not just ancestors, it's future generations too.
Mhm.
Big.
And
Mm.
yeah, that's one of the ways we have in our home been working on how do we relate to anger? How do we show up in the face of this tidal wave, the tsunami,
Yeah.
that we've been given?
Mhm.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. So I'm just sitting with that because that's I'm thinking the lessons for future generations is huge. We could keep going. We got to do an anger part two. But
Yes.
Right.
I want to see before we have our after party, right? What we taking with us. What are if you like for someone who's listening who is listening to y'all, it's like, "Yeah, I hear you. It sounds really great. Yeah, build a relationship with your yeah. Oh, there's wisdom. Oh, okay. All right. If there's parts that may have some concerns or fears, like,
Mm.
um, yeah, what would you say, or offer to them?
Make a note when you get angry. Make a note to yourself.
Hmm.
Write about it. Just a little bit. You don't have to write even a paragraph, but
Mm.
notice it.
It's good. Um, I'll add is it may have to start with like permission before you even get to like even figuring out how you can like show up and express it and process it and create that altar for it because I think so many parts of us have been conditioned to not allow it in. And that's like that can be one of the biggest steps toward reclamation is that you have a right to be angry. And that may have to come from you because there's so many in our communities that maybe haven't figured out how to do that yet. Because like Linda, when you were talking earlier, like I'm gonna show up and it's not gonna look pretty. The part of me is like, oh my God, I want to see what that looks like. And I need an image to know what that looks like and to know it's gonna be okay. Um, so just starting with the permission and bringing that to you, even if it's never offered.
Okay, I'm gonna try to explain this in a way that makes sense.
It's gonna make sense.
There we go.
It's
I know
easy.
how my world is in my head, but when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about working with anger allowed me to really not personalize other people's anger
Mm.
and be able to understand that their anger a lot of the times wasn't about me, right? And I look at it as because of what my ancestors went through. And I get tearful because it's like I have access to resources and support where I'm able to be with my anger in ways that they couldn't.
Yeah.
And anger needs to use like my body a lot of the times because I just think about the physical pain, not even just the emotional pain that was inflicted on so many bodies that my DNA passed through. So being able to not only allow anger to take up space inside in a way where I'm building that window of tolerance, it actually helps me not to be so angry all the time because it's also like anger being that part that's protecting me also have other parts that's in relationship. Like there's a part that's like, all right, anger, I'm here, right? So if you need to tap out, I step in. So even inside, allowing anger to have access to support, what that can look like. So I hope that made sense. I know how my mind is.
It's a beautiful mind. So yes, we know what mind is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, hold that.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I'll say what we've been saying, right? So if there's right parts of you that are have concerns about building a relationship with your anger, there's some wisdom in that.
Mhm.
Because what we've been naming is it's a fact. This anger is big,
Mhm.
um, because the pain is big. And
Mhm.
so uh leaning into that, like in the speed of trust, like, right, whether it's the permission that Kayla offered or the Linda you offered of like just write it down, right? Even if it's not even speaking for it, but at the speed of trust in your own body,
Mhm.
of leaning into one step at a time, like just acknowledging
Yeah.
your own humanity, uh, and and those connected to you in a way that feels right and safe for you. Yeah.
Mhm.
I thank you all for for being on this journey with me, especially in this topic. So as we are closing after party, what are we taking with us? What nugget? One for sure that I'm taking. I'll start with Linda. You shared about the lessons that come with anger, and it's like not just from the past, but for future generations. Like there's so much that has been stifled, right? Because of the systems that are controlling it, and then our own systems, right? That internally, right? That took in that messaging but it's like there's so much wisdom in there that needs to be passed on, that needs to continue and for future generations. I'm definitely taking that with me.
I'm gonna take away more opportunities to let it out. I think my system might not be fully ready to let it all out at once, like outside my body into the people who activate that anger. I think there's parts of me that are real, like I don't know if that's safe, but I think there's more openness. You can let a little bit, right? It's okay to do so. And my system, I think that's part of like interrupting the system in which we've learned is you gotta make those micro changes. And so these
Mhm.
parts, in order for them to trust that maybe myself will be okay and my parts will be okay, is it does take some practice. And so I think that's something I can definitely do and stand on it more than what I already do. I think even the anger I do show be a little contained. A little LOL JK, but really though, right after, so it's like no, let me just
Mhm.
allow you to have whatever parts you feel about it around anger. So I'm gonna hold that.
I really liked what you said, Kayla, about examples. Um, yeah, we need to see examples, and that connects, right? That connects us when we see examples. That's what I'm taking away. It's really inspiring me.
Touching my heart if you can't see it.
So I had this question around anger is present in my life, but I noticed that I'm very selective in how I use it. Um, and I was wondering, am I just being avoidant of things that upset me? But I think I have more clarity around anger is because I know it can be power and it's an energy, right? That if you know how to tap into in a way where You can use it for action where it can make like, it can have a ripple effect. I'm selective in how I use it because I don't want to continue to give power to systems that were not built for me. So I think that's what I'm taking away from it. It's that it's not that I'm avoiding, it's just, you know, yeah, I'm selective. Like there are things that people are really angry about and they constantly talk about it. And I'm like that, but you're feeding that. And there's this knowing that I don't want to feed that, but I'm going to use my anger in this way. Yeah.
There's channels.
Channels, yes.
Some
And that
people.
energies can flow like through me instead of just holding it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for your wisdom.
Black girl magic.
Yeah, all day, every day, all day, every day.
Mhm.
And thank you for allowing, leaning into this discussion around anger and speaking for the wisdom that's there. Yes, this is the Black and Unblending podcast, and it's not like there's anything wrong with being blended, right? Because sometimes
Yeah.
that's the path to get there, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and yeah, being patient with yourself along the way until you can.
Period.
That part.
Period. Thank you so much for listening to the Black and Unblending podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow us on all social media platforms. See you next time. Take care. Peace.